Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Larger Stories Book of the Month webinar. And our book this month is titled The Pressure's Off. So before we start to dive in, let me just say a few things here, a couple quick reminders. We will be taking some questions during the time. So at the bottom of your screen, again, there is a Q&A button. If you hear something or have a comment or a question that you guys want to make, just click on that button and let us know what that question is, and we'll try to get to that after the webinar is getting ready to wrap up. Also, our next book of the month is going to be Inside Out next month. And we're going to do a webinar for that book on September 22nd. So I would invite you to join us then. But I also want to say welcome and thanks for joining us now. I'm Kep Crabb. As we get ready to begin today, let me just say a few things. Growing up for 50 plus years with Larry Crabb as my father was amazing. Some of you've heard the stories, they were just incredible. He was an unbelievable father. But Dad always said something to my brother and myself that really stands out now to me. Yes, he would say, "You are my sons, and you are Larry Crabb's kids, but you are Kep and Ken Crabb, and you guys are individuals." And so, as I was going through some of this stuff this last week, I could really hear Dad's voice as I was reading these words in the book that he wrote. And I just wanted to let you guys know that I'm not Larry Crabb, and I don't think I'm going to try to be Larry Crabb, and I don't think there ever will be another Larry Crabb. But I'm Kep Crabb, and I'm Larry's son. But I'm hoping that the Spirit is going to be able to give you something today through what we have to say that will strengthen you a little bit, maybe encourage you a little bit. Because the text says that all of us who are weary, who are burdened, struggling, suffering, come to me, Jesus says, and I will give you rest. Is there anyone out there today who's feeling a little weary? I know I have sure been. So before I introduce our guest today that you can see on screen with me, I just want to kind of give a little context around this book here, The Pressure's Off. And I'm guessing that there's probably some of you who will be watching this at some point who haven't read this book. And so what I would say right off the bat is this is a book that I think you should read almost every year. It has kind of re-energized me and encouraged me as I've gone through it in these last couple of days and weeks preparing for this today. But if you don't have the book, go to largerstory.com and order it, and we will get it shipped out to you promptly. And give you a chance to go through it, because I really, really encourage you guys to dive into this one. This has been one of my favorite books of Larry's as well. But Larry wrote this book in the early 2000s, 2000, 2001. It was actually published in 2002. And you'll hear us talk a little bit about this today, but Pressure's Off was really the beginning of what we saw as a pivot in some of Larry's thinking as he was shifting from the counseling world to really the spiritual direction world and what that looked like. And this book is just loaded with stuff. I know, Bill, as you've read it before I introduce you here, it's just full of everything. I think that this book was responsible for birthing New Way Ministries, which lasted 2+ decades. The schools of spiritual direction, I think, directly came from some of the stuff that's coming out of Pressure's Off, as well as the book Papa Prayer. There's an entire chapter devoted to the Papa Prayer in The Pressure's Off, which then later turned into a book, as well as a ton of other stuff, like the red dot. Where are you right now? What's going on in your life right now? And so these are all the things that kind of came out of this book. So it's really dense, but I'm going to kind of sum it up really, really quickly for those of you who haven't read the book, so you can maybe join in on some of the discussion today. What Dad really talks about is the distinction between the old covenant, the old way of the law, which was Deuteronomy 29:9, versus the new covenant, the new theology there, which was Hebrews 7:18 and 19. It's the old way, which is really the law of linearity. Do A and B is going to happen, versus the new way, which is the law of liberty, which really talks about freedom in Christ. So what I don't want to do today is I don't want to sit here and give you guys a summary of the book or start to try to unpack what Larry's saying to us in this book. If you've got it, read it. If you don't have it, get it and read it. And you can let this book impact you in that way. But that's really what we wanted. We really do want to talk about what has the impact been of going through this book, and how has it made some shifts in the paradigms for me and for my guest today. So as I introduce this guy who's sitting next to me, he's a close friend and a real spiritual companion of mine, and has been for a long time. And I was with him last week, and he mentioned he was excited about hanging out and checking this webinar out, and that The Pressure's Off is his favorite book. And I said, well, why don't you join me on the webinar and let's get a chance to chat through this. So he said, let's do it. So without any further ado, a close family friend of the Crabbs, a fellow struggler, a spiritual companion, and he's also a Larger Story board member. I'm introducing you guys to Bill Rader, who's a good friend of mine. Bill, thanks for joining me today, bro.
What a treat. Thank you. And I thought we were just going to play golf last week, and I got hooked into a webinar.
Man, I'm so glad. And I hope I didn't hook you in too hard, but I'm glad you came into this, bro. Let me just start, Bill, just to kind of give people some context here about kind of the history that you have with the Crabb family. When was the first time that you met mom and dad?
Everybody meets Larry and Rachel with fear and trepidation. I don't think that's laughable now, but I remember back then of going, I kind of need to behave on this one. And that would have been probably up in your home where you all lived in Morrison, and it would have been with 50 other students. And it's funny, the pressure's off is what we're going to talk about today. The pressure was on that night, baby. Oh yeah, because I don't know why I thought there was pressure, but it was self-promoted. Like I was going to be spiritual or something, or I was going to be smart or something, or I was going to tell you who I knew or something. And it was all about all the wrong things that kind of got exposed in that year for me. And it's still being exposed. But so my first entree into Team Crabb was probably at a meal that would have been sponsored by Larry and Rachel for the whole folks who were in the counseling program in 1992. Hello.
So you went through, hello. So you went through the counseling program early 90s and got your master's degree at CCU under Dad.
I did. And Tom Varney and Dan Allender and that whole crew. But from the get-go, I got to know Larry and Rachel, and I don't think I tried for that. I don't think anybody did, or if they did, it didn't work. But as I said, as we're leading up to this thing today, I think ping pong was the reason I got invited back, because
you could hang. Because
well,
you can hang on the ping pong.
There was insecurity there, okay? But we kind of got after it a little bit, and the brothers Crabb could play a little bit.
The brothers Crabb have been known to play some ping pong every now and then. That's awesome. So, you've gotten to know mom and dad, and I think you made the point, even as we were chatting last night, just kind of running through some of the stuff we talked about today, is you really don't get to know Larry without getting to know Rachel.
You don't.
And those two have always been, you just can't say his name without saying her name, or her name without saying his name. And so that's been a little different for mom. And I just want to, I guess, as we're talking about this, let me just tell people too, she is really doing remarkably well.
Yay.
And it's awesome. And and she is she's surrounded by people who love her, and she knows that it was Dad's time, and she's stepping into life and navigating life in a new way without him. And I just couldn't be more proud of her and excited about what she's doing. So she's doing well. Just thought I'd catch you guys up on that. Let me ask you, Bill, real quick too, as we get ready to dive into this. Would you say that Larry, Dad, was a real kind of spiritual father to you?
It became that. There was no way that I was a student and that's it. And that's where it should have been. And that's where it was when it began. And the Spirit allowed us more. And some of it was due to just a real affection for each other and time. And I had a ministry in town with professional athletes, and Larry was happily able to come participate in some of the stuff we were doing with the Denver Broncos and Colorado Rockies. But then as life got messy for me, and my marriage was in trouble, and I needed, I was sinking, if you will. I was in a spiritual, I was in a bad way. He wasn't the professor of Crabb anymore. He was my big brother. He was my mentor, and he was somebody that pointed me to the Spirit. And I'm very free to speak about that. But in those days, I thought the sky was falling, and he said, no, Jesus was up to something good.
Mm.
That's what he told me. He said Jesus was up to something good. And I was ready to say, it's over. I'm a mess, and messy people don't make it in this world. And he said that he was a mess. He said, we're all a mess. And I didn't believe him, but I believed it as time went by. And Larry became authentically a Christ follower to me. He was not interested in being my buddy. He was very interested in seeing Christ formed in me.
Yeah.
That was crazy. I never had that before. And it all came in the context of my struggle.
Yeah. Oh man. It's, you and I could sit here and talk about stories about that guy for way too long. And it just, it brings back the, the memory of that guy. So
thank you, Kepper.
We miss him. We miss him.
Yeah. And I want to say too, even preparing to come on to Larger Story webinar today to talk about Pressures Off, I didn't think this would be a tribute to Larry. It shouldn't be. It's a tribute to the spirit who led Larry. But darn, I miss that guy.
Yeah. Me too.
He would get after me right now if we made this a Larry seminar, because it's not. But the Lord used him in my life, and he's your papa. But for us and for me, he was significant in planting Jesus deep inside me when I kind of thought maybe Jesus was done with me.
Yeah.
Because of my failure. Yeah.
Oh, well, why was you told me last week when we were playing that Pressures Off is your favorite book, and it really a favorite book that Crabb wrote. And I said the same thing. I think it was the one that resonated most with me. Why is that with you, Bill?
Well, great question. It's not that I think I've read all the books that would be books that Larry wrote in the day. And maybe there's a few I read twice, but there's no book, except for the exception possibly of 66 Love Letters. But for me, I go back to Pressures Off twice a year. And there's been times I go 4 days in a row with it. There's been times I just do a night or two. And yeah, it's kind of longing to refresh, or when we were speaking yesterday, I used the word refocus my lens on, is this about my effort to pull this baby off, or is this about surrender and letting the Spirit come into my life? So Pressures Off, and especially this is my plug for the book, and Kep and Larger Story didn't put me up to this one. I get, and I don't think I'm getting paid, but let me know, Kep. But my plug for the book is, especially for those that maybe not, people that knew Larry's ministry very well, this is a book you can give away, and you can give away to struggling people who need hope and who need something authentic, different than what they're hearing out there today, which is Aslan is on the move. The Spirit is on the move. And I would say that this book, different than some, are for dumbos like me that can pull me in and go, don't attempt to be somebody you're not. Let the Spirit lead. And so I've come back to it a lot. And the reason I've come back to it a lot, I think, has been the Spirit. I have, and we just played golf last week, but I was in the middle of this book. I had no idea Larger Story was promoting or doing this book this week. Didn't know. It's kind of where I go sometimes. So that's a little window into me.
I love that, Bill. I was talking with a close friend today, and just kind of talking about what we're going to talk about today a little bit, and he was saying that with Larger Story, there's a little bit of a window before Dad's memory starts to fade with people. I don't think it'll fade with us, but with some people it will. And so as I was reading the Pressures Off, I looked at it and look at all the saints. Old authors that he refers to. I mean, Augustine, Spurgeon, John Owen, of course, C.S. Lewis. I mean, he dives into first things, second things, big time in this book. Mm-hmm. And then even new authors, you like Piper. He's got some stuff with Piper all through this. And so, what I've realized is these are authors that not a lot of us are searching out right now. And it seems like just kind of in the academic or theological world is when we start to look into the, what did Augustine say? And most people are like, I don't know what Augustine said. And let me talk to Larry Crabb and figure out what Augustine said, because he's the only one I know who reads that stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't want Dad's memory to just be lost or to just begin to diminish, because what, you said it earlier, what he's talked about and not to give him any kudos, but it comes straight from the scripture and has eternal value. And there's just no way that I wanted that to go away. That's why we started Larger Story. And so the question that we're asking ourselves now is, how can we, and Dad loved this term, tag along with the Spirit as we try to convey this message to a new and a hungry and a thirsty group of Christians, who we want to let them know that the best life is coming. It's not now, and that that and even in the midst of this now, we can have hope, and we can really even have joy as we're persevering and enduring through this life now. And so, when we start to detach from the demanding spirit of trying to make this life work, when that starts to happen, Dad called it, in Pressure's Off, he called it the better life of blessings. And when we start to make that, when we start to realize that that's not going to happen, and that this life is going to not work, it's going to fail, we really then, I've noticed, I start to develop a little bit more of an eternal perspective that helps me persevere now, because this life isn't good. And I mean, some of the people know my story. A year ago, last September 8th, my wife was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. And I'm just, just a blow. And I said to her, your biggest problem is already taken care of. Your biggest problem's been taken care of. God took care of that. And then you said to me the other day, Bill, and it really left an impact on me. You said, I don't ever want to use her as an illustration. She's not an illustration.
No way. Nope.
She's battling for her life, her smaller story life right now. And I got out of this book, as I was reading it, I thought, I saw 4 things where Dad talks about a new purity, where God looks at us and says, you're clean. You're covered by the blood. You're a new purity. You've got a new identity. I don't want Kimmy to be known as a cancer patient. She's a child of God who's going to heaven. She's heaven bound. She's got a new disposition. And this is the one that I love, where she actually wants holiness more than she wants sin. And she's choosing that holiness. And then the last one is, he talks about this in the book, a new power. And what does that new power mean? Because I'm feeling this new power, Bill. And it's a power to draw near to the Lord no matter what's going on. That's how God gets good out of these horrible situations. And so those are the things that I was leaving as I was thinking about this book, and why it made such an impact on me. It just, I think it might have been too, for me, the time that I read it.
Hang on a second, Kep.
Yeah.
What you just said there was pure gold. And I just want you to stop and breathe that in, because it's so important and so different and so spirit-led that in the middle of major crisis in a home, that your first thought was, I want to draw nearer to Christ. Kep, when I met your dad one day and I thought that my marriage was over, it ended up being over, but in those days I didn't know. He said to me, I don't know if you'll have a marriage, but I do know this is your chance to draw nearer.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to hear that. I kind of wanted the candy of blessings. That's how simple and that's how little I was. I wanted the candy of blessings, and I kind of wanted my ministry, what a joke, to not be hurt. I was kind of protecting, in a very, very selfish way, me. And he very gently, very firmly, as you know, Pops, he said to me, I don't know about your marriage. Let's don't talk about that. But what I do know is these are windows for you to draw near. And so what you just said was pure gold regarding your last year. And your sweetheart, your bride, and she's beautiful and facing this with good courage.
As I was reading this book, the first 52 years of my life, I tell people I was walking in tall cotton. God was doing his job right. Oh, what a great job, God, you're doing. Keep going. I think I'm kind of doing my end up too. I'm, whatever I'm doing, I'm not perfect, but I'm trying to hold up my end, but God, you're doing a great job. And then last September 8th, it was like, wow, God, you're not doing a great job anymore. And it's just like, and you start asking those questions. And my question to you, Bill, is why is that law of linearity so powerful? Why is that so powerful to us? I kept asking, was this something I've done? Was this something she's done? You said something to me months ago that no one was more undeserving of this than her. You get people who smoke packs of cigarettes a day and they get lung cancer. Oh, gee, I'm so surprised. But Kimmy, that wasn't her. I mean, this is, she's just undeserving of this. And I'm looking at it now, Bill, through the lens of, if this is the only way that we get to know the Lord better, and Dad unpacks this in the spiritual theology, the whole cycle of brokenness and repentance and acceptance, and keeps going until we get back to brokenness again, and we do it again. And we go again, because I've read Pressures Off many times, and I'm still questioning that stuff in regards to the crisis that we're in with Kimmy. What's going on, Lord? And do I believe that God's up there doing stuff? Moving us around and gave her cancer? No, I don't believe that. But he's saying, I want to use this to draw you closer to me. And so I'm starting to understand now, for the very first time, what it really means to embrace these struggles and these trials that James talks about. And when you do that, you really do experience a little bit of a joy that I don't even know if I can articulate. It's been a hard year, but I'm experiencing joy in the midst of this because I'm knowing the Father better, and I know the pressure's off. Mm-hmm. There's nothing that I can do. There's nothing I can say outside of the presence of the Spirit that has any power. Mm-hmm. And so my prayer for us this afternoon, as we're talking through this, is, Lord, do with this what you will for people, because the pressure really is off. And the Dad always would say, I'm leaving the heavy lifting to you, Lord. It's the Spirit's job. I can't do anything.
And I want to address the word pressure real quick, Kep, because I think pressure is the way of this world. And everybody that would be listening to this is going, you don't even know the half of it.
Yeah.
No, you don't even know the half of it in terms of the pressure I feel. And so I think pressure is the way of this world. It was spoken of, I think, by Augustine in Larry's Pressures Off book, regarding it's evil to even attempt to take the pressure thing and handle it, because it's unmanageable. It's unhandleable, if that's a word. And so my thought is, as we think about this, what a drink of for a thirsty man, what a drink of cold water it is to go, is there a way, 61 years old in my case, to be on this planet and live pressure free? Well, not until I surrender to, Lord, have your way with me, have your will with me, and make it my desire to draw near, instead of, as I used the word candy a little while ago. I was a candy man that wanted treats, and he didn't let me settle, and your dad didn't let me settle for that. Phil Mickelson had just won the Masters the day before I met Larry one morning, in a real crisis point in my life, and he told me that my life, he had much more hope for my life than he would Phil, and he wasn't picking on Phil. But because Phil had just won the Masters, that was the context. He said, you have a chance like nobody else I know to draw near now, because all the other stuff is being stripped away. You don't have a great reputation. You don't have probably a ministry. You don't have a lot. And it was some failings in my marriage. And long story short, that scared me. But this is where you all can be encouraged, without mentors, without brothers, without people to walk with you. When I had a couple, it wasn't just Larry, it was you guys too. I kind of got courageous in my soul to go, I'm going to listen, I'm going to get quiet, and I'm going to believe that the nearness of God is my good, instead of my stuff. And at Kepper, it changed my path. It changed my hope. And so I was young then, I'm young now, but the river changed, because you know what? I had to let go of some false hopes that weren't any good anyway. It was just all about me.
Well, he says in the Pressure's Off, at every moment, we're coming up at a fork in the road. And I've seen that. I mean, you're either going to go this way or you're going to go this way. And you've always got those options. And that's the only two options you've got. You're either going to draw closer to the Lord or you're not. And how do we get nearer to the Lord? How do we draw closer to the Lord? And in the midst of suffering, which both you and I have had a chance to feel a little bit of that, we're realizing that this world isn't it. You know,
He was not afraid of the word depression, was he?
Dad?
No. I mean, your pop, because I was depressed, and he said, that's a good thing. You should be, because this world can't come through for you.
Yeah.
And he didn't run to help me deal with my depression. He said, yep, that's what happens when you're face to face with how empty this place is.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm reading from his book here. He says, we never measure up, not for a minute, and we never will until we're home. And of course, I was feeling that, but that came from your dad.
Yeah.
And he was a rare voice in the sense of pointing me to the fact that there's a reason the Lord fixed it so that this world wouldn't come through for us.
Yeah. Wow.
He ordained it so that this your best sales job, your best day, your best time at home always would leave you wanting a little bit more.
Yeah.
And so long story short, I want to read this one more. It says, but that's not the central problem. I'm reading just one little phrase here. And now I approach my second point. The central obstacle to his life flowing in us and pouring from us is this. We want something else more, and that's evil. We want the blessings of a better life, and we desire to draw near to Jesus. And he nailed me. He caught me. Yeah. Not just once, more than once. He caught me going, I need to refocus. And why I reread Kepper, The Pressure is Off, it's kind of like lens. It helps my heart and my eyes refocus to what is it that I want really. And if I want really toys under the tree, or what if I want really is for my kids and for me to draw near, close to the Lord, so that he could be praised and he could be lifted up instead of something else, then I'm on the narrow way.
Yeah.
I'm a part of the larger story. By the way, I was just thinking, Kep, larger story isn't good enough, because I'm not going to rename the ministry, but larger.
Thank you.
We're not going to rename the ministry, but larger. It's way larger.
Yeah.
It's eternally larger. And I really, I'm locking into that I can be a part of a larger story, by simply drawing near. And, oh, by the way, getting over myself.
Yeah.
Getting over my need for blessings. So,
I don't know how you do that outside of suffering, outside of realizing that this world doesn't do it. I was raised, Kimmy calls my family the fairy tale life. I had a mom and dad that loved each other till the second my father passed away.
Yep.
And, I've got a great family and I even grew up with this, and I still wrestle with this notion of the pressure's on.
Yep.
And I go back through what Dad wrote down as the 5 kind of core ideas in the pressure's off. And I wrote them down. Reflect on where you are and where you honestly are. He would always say, don't pretend. Don't tell God where you wish you were, but where you really are, and come to the Father honestly.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's really, really painful. I mentioned earlier that he says too, that recognize that the fork in the road is always in front of you. It's always before you. We're always getting ready to go to the fork. And then the word that you've been using, which is hilarious, the third point he makes is refocus your goals. Well, that's what this book has done for us, is getting us to refresh and refocus as we continue to battle. Because this life, it's funny. I said last weekend when I was meeting with a group of friends at a little retreat we had, and I said, this is a war. We're in a war. The party's coming, but the problem is we think that this is a party. And it's not a party. This is an absolute bloody war. And we're in the middle of it right now. And it's getting worse. The spiritual warfare is going on. I mean, all the stuff that's happening, it's now time to put on that shield and pick up the sword, because we are in a war, because the party's ahead of us. And what did Dad always say about the Trinity? They're a party happening that wants to invite us into it. So that always was encouraging to refocus. And that's what the pressure's off has really helped me to do, is refocus. And then 2 more, he says, realize that what God provides is a means of grace. and that one just kind of floored me. And then he goes into prayer. The last one is reorient. This is what Dad says. Reorient your prayer life to match the new way of thinking. And that's what produced the Papa prayer. And I've been so confused, Bill, by prayer. Mm-hmm. What does it mean to pray? I even told you last night, I said, I'm really not praying for Kimmy's healing. When people say that they are, I'm of course grateful. And it's not that I don't want that to happen, but
me too.
But yeah, we want that, but I want something more.
Yeah.
I want the two of us to know him better through this in a way that only this provides. And if we have to embrace this to know that, then I'm willing to take that. And
you two guys are pace setters, because truly that makes sense to me. Heal me, heal me, heal me, which will be my cry too if I have cancer tomorrow. Seems weak. It seems to fade.
But then the pressure's on.
The pressure's on. Yeah. The pressure's back on. And I love that together you are having the courage to look there. I have a cousin, sweet cousin, who is in Aspen, 58 years old, also that's battling her issues. And the outside world wants to make sure she doesn't get sick and wants to make sure she gets healed. And I have been the one voice in her life to say, you know what, there could be even a bigger prayer than that.
Yeah.
And the bigger prayer might be here that we would use this experience in our life to know him and be a blessing to others. We can even pour a cup of water now. We can even pour our neighbor a cup of water today with all the crap you guys are going through and some of the stuff she's going through. And frankly, all of us,
no doubt,
something that's on the table.
Yep.
And, but I am honored to know you. And I want to say to the people listening, I'm bragging on you now, but I'm not kissing your butt, by the way.
Thank you.
I'm not going to do that. But we had the privilege of being with your son the other day, and he is drawing near too.
Yeah.
He's paying attention. And so I think this is kind of part of you and Kimmy's legacy is your two kids are drawing near, watching you guys go. So
yeah. It's again how God gets
good
out of these kind of things. Oh, all kudos to the Lord. All praise to him. I said that this was my favorite book. And one of the reasons it's been my favorite book of Dad's was when I first read it was as I was going through the number 4 school of spiritual direction. And some of you know that the School of Spiritual Direction is a school that was a 1-week intense program that Dad did for the better part of 2 decades. I think we did 77, 78 schools before he passed away.
Wow.
And it took me almost half the week to realize as I'm reading the book that I'm trying to manipulate God, and okay, 76 is someone saying I'm good. I did something like that, but a lot of schools were done, but I was trying to manipulate God. And because I was saying, God, I'm going to do this. And I expect you to show up this week. And it took me half the week to realize as I'm reading the book, what I was doing. And it just was a total paradigm shift. And I always wonder, why do I have to constantly come back to that in order to be able to navigate some of these deep waters that we go through? And we naturally don't want to do that. And it's that flesh spirit battle that we're fighting. And, Dad says in the book too, that, followers of the old way, they organize their life into a system. And I've been pretty good at that. I got that system down, not so much on the golf course. I'm still trying to work on that, but that's not happening very well. But I had life down. And then when the doctor comes at you and calls you when you're sitting in the waiting room and says, your wife's got stage 4 lung cancer and she has a 30% chance of living 5 years. And you're like, oh, my system isn't working. But the followers of the new way, they accept the unresolvable tension that this life provides. And it's just, I don't want that tension, but man, if that's the only way I know you better, Lord, is through that tension and that suffering that this life provides, then I say, bring it on. And I'm willing. And I'm finally understanding that in just a little teeny bit of a way. I remember Dad would say, I'm just a second grader. And I think I'm a kindergartner, but I'm starting to understand how to do math a little bit now. And I'm feeling it for the first time as a 53-year-old man who just lost his father. And I said to Dad, Dad, what are you most sure of? And some people have asked him this question when he was dying. He was weeks away from death. And he said, with no hesitation. You live by faith, not by sight. And he's living by sight now because he's seeing Jesus. And, that just to me just brings chill bumps to me. It gives me goosebumps. And so there really is a different way to live that provides the pressure being off. Yeah. And it requires full surrender and not trying to make this life work.
I want to draw you back, Kep, to one of the expressions in Pressure's Off by Lawrence J., where in a pivotal moment for him, we're all borrowing, right? But from a pivotal point for him, he said, it's in the text, it's in the text, it's in the text. And Larry saw, well, he already knew, and he'd already experienced the fact that this is about a spirit-led life and not a linear life of A plus B. And God never plays with my games anyway. Whenever I try to play the game of, I need a blessing now, he says, how about the blessing of suffering, William?
Yeah.
I think that's what maybe I'll give you. But Larry said it was in the text when he realized, my peace I give to you, not as the world gives, but my peace I give to you. It was truly an epiphany, I think, for your dad when he led the rest of us to, and his isn't the only book that's done that, but he uses this book to refocus us that it's in the text. This is what the old covenant led to: emptiness, loneliness, suffering, pain. Try hard, try harder, do better, try harder, get God to come through for you. And I hope everybody reads it that has never read it. And those of you that have read it, dive in again sometime this year or this week, because the new way of the Spirit, larger story is he wants to, you said something about a battle, Kep? He wants war. He wants to fight that fight for you. He knows you can't fight it yourself. Now that's cool. Having somebody who happens to be your advocate, who happens to be God's son, wanting to fight. What's our role though to get that going? Shut up and begin to live by faith, and get out of the way and say, Lord, I surrender. It's all yours. Wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you lead, I will follow. And I hated those prayers. I hated those songs when I used to sing those songs, because I'm going, I don't know if I mean that. I don't know if I mean that. And I'm getting to a place where I'm getting a little more courage, and I'm wanting to go there.
I see that in you, Bill.
I want to go there.
Yeah.
And it's not because any other reason than the Spirit's taken me there, but it's very different than holding on to this world. And I see that in you too, regarding what's important, what grabs you. And your dad always said, not the shoulds, not the oughts, but the want tos.
Yeah.
Not the shoulds, but the want tos of wanting more of him versus wanting the passing pleasures of blessings and sin, in hopes that I could somehow, get God to come through for me. He doesn't any more than when he did it. He died on the cross. I think that when I talk about this to others, Kep, I go, you want blessings, but him dying on the cross for all of your sins wasn't enough? You want a cheeseburger also? You want trinkets also? And so there's some arrogance in that, of wanting. I think blessings can fall into the camp of arrogance when I'm saying, yeah, you died on the cross, but I want more.
Well, and it's interesting because he does talk a little bit in the book too about, and I love what you said there, Bill, but about there is some linearity that is, we reap what we sow.
No doubt.
In some ways. And so, it is hard to break from that at some level. I remember saying to Dad before he was gone, I said, Dad, who am I going to call now? Every time I had a question, that's the guy I called. And he said, think about the Holy Spirit. I was like, okay. And to rely on the Spirit now in that way is a different world. And I'll tell you what, man, I'm feeling the fact that the pressure really is off. And when we really embrace that in a real reality, that there's nothing that we can do to make something happen. Dad always talked about two models. You've got the model with the center of that one model is, I want to make something happen. And that's what a lot of churches sometimes have as their center. It's what Microsoft has as its center. Mm-hmm. It's what Coca-Cola has as their center. And it doesn't make any distinction. So he said, well, the center really should be, I want to know God better. at all costs. That's the center. And that's happening now. And I think that the word that Dad always loved was release.
Yeah.
And if we're releasing something that's deepest in us, because it's already there, the Spirit put it there,
yeah.
Then the pressure really is off. And I hope that the people listening today, Bill, are encouraged by that, because it's encouraging to me. And just having gone through this book for the last few weeks and kind of diving into it with a real intentionality, and then also getting a chance to chat through it with you and hang out with you a bit. It's been an encouragement to say the pressure's off. And I really believe it, even in the midst of hard times, that there's nothing we can do, and really God's in control. And to sit back and really believe that lets you kind of take a deep breath.
It does.
And so I hope that this has been encouraging to people today. And that, you know, for all you who are weary, Matthew 11, come to me, Jesus says, and I will give you rest. And I'm starting to experience some of that rest in the midst of the storm, that God's saying, you know, I got this, man. And I hear Dad, I'll finish on this, Bill, but I hear Dad, I think I mentioned it to you when we were playing last week. I really hear him speaking to me, and I hear his voice. It's kind of a weird thing, and I don't claim to be some weird deal on that, but he says, it's better than you can think, than you can even imagine. Keep going, keep going. I hear that. And he just continues to encourage us through his writings and through his talk. So I thank you guys for joining us. I don't know if we have any questions that anybody presented. I think you answered all the questions, Bill. People are leaving completely clear on what's going on. So
should be fast asleep.
Yes.
I heard us talk about linearity some today, Kep, and as people, if I hope they ask questions, but I was just thinking, yeah, there are blessings, and blessings is a great word. It's not a bad word. It's a beautiful word.
Yeah.
But it's first things first, and that's the nature of pressure's off.
It is. It's all unpacked in there. I did just get one little comment here that I think is interesting, because this message seems very relevant to a younger generation that at this point now are under so much pressure.
Oh boy.
From all sides. I mean, they're getting it from every single angle. And it makes me want to think about when I was in my 20s and 30s, then what would I say to someone now who's in their 20s and 30s who feels overwhelmed by that pressure? And how can I say to them in a way that, man, the pressure really is off, and in a way that does convey that to them and give them a rest. So those are the kind of things that we're thinking about as Larger Story continues to move forward. We want to have an opportunity to talk to that generation. The people that I think of, Bill, just to be very honest with you, are Josie and Jake.
Yes.
You know, Josie turns 24 next month. Jake just turned 21. And these are my kids who I would give my life for. And I want to know, how do I have a voice in their life that says there is hope? Mm-hmm. There is hope in the midst of this chaos. And there's actually even some joy in the midst of this. And they're both experiencing things now with their mother, who's going through cancer. I didn't go through that. I don't know what that's like. I know what it's like for my wife, but I didn't have my mother go through it. They're experiencing that. And I really appreciate you saying they're growing, because I really feel the Lord's doing something in their lives too. And so he's using this time in our lives to say the pressure's off and rely on me, and, you know, get on my shoulders because I'm carrying you. And I just couldn't be more grateful to him and to you, Bill, for joining us today. So thanks, I just want to say thank you to everybody who joined us today. Thanks for taking some time to spend with us. And just so you know, this is Bill Rader, who is one of our board members and a super close friend. And you guys will see more of Bill as we continue to do these, because it's just fun to have a conversation. And I really didn't want to just be a talking head. That's what Dad did a lot of, and he was really good at it. And I'm not as good at it as he was. And I'm not trying to be Larry Crabb. So I'll bring in some of my friends to chat with, and hopefully it'll encourage you guys and give you the strength to continue. Stay on the road, folks. And remember that the pressure is off. Thank you so much for joining us today. Have a great week.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.